Nashville Public Radio serves Middle Tennessee in many ways every day, including through this podcast. You can support it by leaving a review or rating, by telling a friend about it, or by contributing at WPLN.org/give.
This is the Nashvillager Podcast. It's January 30th, 2026. On this day in 1820, English explorer Edward Bransfield spotted Antarctica, a continent that some had theorized might exist, but no human in written history had ever actually seen before. At least, none that he knew about. A Russian ship may have beat him to it by 2 days, but they were also seeing so many offshore islands and icebergs that it's not exactly clear when the Russians spotted land on the actual continental mainland. And even the coasts that Bransfield and his team mapped weren't confirmed to be part of the continental mass for another 20 years. There is so much fascinating information about those early polar explorers. And if I were reading it in another context at another time, I'd probably be interested in things like how they oriented themselves or why they suspected there was a continent, that kind of stuff. But right now, I just keep wondering how those explorers kept warm in Antarctic conditions. They lived their whole lives handling cold temperatures without electricity. They were experts on the topic. And right now, a lot of folks in Middle Tennessee could use some tips. I'm Nina Cardona, and this is your daily digest of what's happening around Middle Tennessee with historical context from Nashville Public Radio, WPLN News. Staying warm is the top concern for everyone whose home is still without heat due to power outages. It's only going to become more of an issue this weekend as another cold front blasts its way through our region. The best thing you can do is, of course, to go somewhere else. A hotel, a friend's house, a warming shelter, someplace where the heat is working. But if you do end up needing to spend time in an unheated space, there are some things you can do to stay a little bit warmer. Looking back to history, the ornate tapestries in European castles and the heavy drapes in Victorian homes served a very practical purpose. They added insulation to drafty spaces and covered up windows that were otherwise letting cold air inside. Now, you may not have a fancy weaving hanging around, but towels and bedding can be hung over windows or rolled up and strategically placed to block drafts that are letting cold air into the room where you're spending your time. And I did say room, singular. That's one tip you can take from medieval monasteries, which often had a specific structure called a warming house. Basically, the idea was to gather during cold winter weather in a smaller space that was much easier to heat and keep warm. Best of all is picking a room with windows that face the south. The sun stays pretty low in the winter sky, but the south side of any building gets substantially more warming sun exposure than the other walls. There's also something to learn from folks who go backpacking and camping in weather like this. For one thing, they stay active in the cold, letting their bodies generate heat that can then be trapped in place by their clothing. They generally swear by dressing in layers. Ideally, the material closest to your skin should be made of synthetic fabrics. Thermals are best, of course, but if you don't have those, you might consider exercise clothing made from a wicking material. That's because even in the cold, you can end up at least momentarily warm enough to sweat. And you don't want something like cotton that will hold that moisture right on your skin. On top of that, something like a fleece pullover, sweatshirt, or a flannel shirt is a good second layer before you put on a jacket or a coat. And of course, your warmest socks and a hat are always a good idea too. But whatever your layers, you want to be really careful to keep your skin dry while making sure to drink plenty of water. In fact, the tip for winter hikers is to carry even more water than they have on hand for a hot summer hike. To regulate your internal temperature, you need to stay hydrated. And don't just depend on your sense of thirst to tell you when you need water. We don't tend to have as many of those physical cues to drink when we're cold. But that water intake is still really important to staying warm. But again, all of this is a stopgap. The best thing to do is to get to a warm place this weekend. Power is being restored to more and more homes. So here's hoping there are more options for people without power to bunk in with those who do have it. If you've been calling around hotels and not found one with open rooms, that could be changing as people with restored power go back home. So keep calling around. And warming shelters continue to operate all over Tennessee. In Nashville, there's transportation available to get to a shelter. Plus, the buses are running again. We've got a lot of information about those shelter options and contact information for reaching out for assistance on our website, WPLN.org. In just a few minutes, Julie Heights' Grammy preview. That's coming up after the newscast.
The justice system is complicated. I'm Paige Flager, and as WPLN's criminal justice reporter, I'm constantly asking, is the system working? And who is it working for?
The system is broken. I think it's more punitive than anything.
And this is not about justice anymore. This is about vengeance.
We're trying to get justice from a justice system that failed us.
How policies impact real people. Hear their stories here on WPLN News.
Here's the latest from WPLN News. Tens of thousands of Tennesseans, most of which are in Nashville, are still without power. As we near a week into the outage event, WPLN Cynthia Abrams reports tensions over Nashville Electric Service's handling of the situation are rising.
Even the mayor has questions for NES. Here's Freddie O'Connell's message to the utility Thursday.
Even if it's bad news, share the bad news, because it's better to have that than just no understanding of what is going on.
But NES's communications have been struggling. Faulty alerts have gone out telling people their power is back on when it isn't. And there's still no timeline for when people without power will get it back.
The one thing we don't want to do is give inaccurate information, but we absolutely have to start giving more information, which is what we're working on.
That was Brent Baker with NES. The other tension is around line workers. There have been reports that NES has turned away help. NES wouldn't directly answer questions about whether they passed on some line workers. Instead, they said they have accepted help from hundreds of contractors, but that for safety purposes, they follow a vetting process to make sure they are accepting only skilled workers. Cynthia Abrams, WPLN News.
As these frigid temperatures drag on, city officials and health experts are ringing alarm bells about carbon monoxide. The odorless, colorless gas can become poisonous and even lethal with bad ventilation. The first sign is flu-like symptoms: headache, nausea, vomiting, fatigue. Extended use of a gas fireplace can allow buildup. So can running a car in the garage, even with the door open, or running a generator too close to the house. Dr. Rebecca Bruckle-Larry told our Daily Show This Is Nashville that it's been an issue for Tennesseans of all ages this week. She's the medical director of the Tennessee Poison Center.
We're still seeing additional cases coming in. I checked last night for our Poison Center data, and we cover the entire state of Tennessee. We had 107 cases that had occurred within the last week as of last night.
The center is hosted within Vanderbilt University Medical Center, which has treated dozens of children for carbon monoxide poisoning in the aftermath of the storm. And the Davidson County Medical Examiner is investigating a 92-year-old man's death, which appears to be related to generator use. Metro officials said during yesterday's daily briefing that it would be the second death in the county associated with carbon monoxide and the fourth storm-related death in the city. As recovery from Winter Storm Fern continues and lives start getting back to normal, Middle Tennesseans who received help may think about paying it forward and helping others. One of the hardest hit areas is Sumner County, with nearly 6,000 people still without power. And in the weeks to follow, the community will need a lot of hands-on help. Sumner County Mayor John Isbell joined our Daily Show This Is Nashville and encouraged people to use caution when thinking about how and where to volunteer.
Well, we have some warming stations set up, and we encourage people to use those. We try not to get into the hardest hit areas. We leave that to the professionals, because a lot of these trees will have power lines tangled in with them, and we really need the electric companies out working on those and making sure that no one is injured.
You can hear more from Isbell and additional storm coverage from this week in the This Is Nashville podcast feed. Meanwhile, Metro leaders have unveiled a new relief fund for Nashvillians grappling with the impacts of the snow and ice storm. The Winter Storm Relief Fund is now available for people to apply, which can be done by calling 211. Dollars will be used to help residents purchase food and supplies. In the coming days, it will also be used to assist with debris cleanup. The fund is a partnership between United Way, the Community Foundation of Middle Tennessee, and volunteer organizations active in disaster. It's already received its first major donation, $250,000 from Tractor Supply, to kickstart the purse. For Nashville's immigrants, the political and literal climate have some folks staying in their homes even with overnight lows well below freezing. Lisa Sherman Luna with the Tennessee Immigrant and Refugee Rights Coalition says many people without legal status have avoided calling 911 or going to warming shelters out of fear of being deported.
All of us should be really disturbed right now that we have whole sections of our communities in Nashville who are going to face more hardship because they're having to make tough choices like stay in their homes and not go to a warming center, and the risk that that puts on people.
Turk has organized a phone bank to check on vulnerable households. As some homes approach 4 days without power, state lawmakers have proposed greater restrictions on the jobs and licenses that Tennesseans without legal status can have. Meanwhile, a mother separated from her baby in Tennessee will have to continue the fight for her child from the other side of the U.S.-Mexico border. WPLN's Mariana Bacallao reports.
Esther Lopez Sanchez had less than 3 days with her infant daughter before she was taken into custody by the Department of Children's Services. That's according to immigrant advocate Zainab Al-Makor, who's been working with the mother. Lopez Sanchez and her ex-boyfriend were jailed for drug-related charges when she was pregnant. Her charges were later dropped, but she remained in jail and on ICE's radar. Al-Makor says,
under normal circumstances, the person would be able to bond out and fight their case on the outside. But once they get an ICE hold, there is no way out.
Lopez Sanchez hasn't seen her daughter in more than a year. She was sent to a Louisiana detention facility in November and had stayed there until this week when she was deported to Mexico. Al-Makor says she doesn't do family law, but in her experience,
I haven't seen reunification occur once the kids are in state custody.
A DCS spokesperson says the department cannot comment on the case because of confidentiality laws. Lopez Sanchez's daughter remains in DCS custody in Tennessee. Mariana Bacallao, WPLN News.
You'll find more news anytime at WPLN.org.
For Nashville Public Radio, I'm senior music writer Julie Height, tracking key changes in the music industry. The Grammy Awards have gotten knocked for being slow to adapt, but at a time when the music industry is undergoing radical change, the 68th edition of the awards show is likely to feel more like a responsive update. It's the first time that a Spanish-language artist, Bad Bunny, is up for all 3 biggies, record, song, and album of the year. That's not the only development that has my attention. Last fall, I reported on the split of the country album category. The newly created traditional category wound up with an interesting mix of nominees. 1, Zach Top, is a current mainstream hitmaker. 2, Margot Price and Charlie Crockett, have been embraced in Americana. And the remaining pair, Lucas Nelson and his dad, Willie, represent a family dynasty with outlaw country roots.
I got an old pair of boots that fit my feet just right.
The new contemporary country album category looks a lot like years past. 3 of the nominees, Miranda Lambert, Eric Church, and Kelsey Ballerini, are such established and respected commercial forces that they've gotten repeat album nods. Then there are the familiar Nashville figures whose recent stylistic evolutions landed them in different categories. After twice winning Best Bluegrass Album, Molly Tuttle stretched her acoustic chops toward pop and rock and got an Americana Album nomination. Hayley Williams, who scored rock wins with Paramore, explored so freely on her 3rd solo project that it's up for Best Alternative Music Album. There's broader recognition for Nashville's behind-the-scenes talent, too. Nate Smith, the drummer who powers Brittany Howard's band, has an alternative jazz album nomination. And Claude Kelly and Chuck Harmony, who make up the duo Louis York, worked on the Duran Bernard album that's nominated in the progressive R&B category. I'll be watching the Grammys on Sunday night, and I'll bring you more of this music business analysis in the next Key Changes column. For Nashville Public Radio, I'm Julie Height.
Thanks for listening to the Nash Villager podcast. We take this look at Nashville news every weekday. If you like it, go ahead and subscribe on your favorite podcasting app and tell a friend or give us a mention on your socials. It It really helps get the word out. And of course, everything at WPLN News is listener supported. You can become a member at WPLN.org. And that's it for today. Thanks so much for listening. Let's make this day a good one. Let's try to stay warm this weekend. And we'll catch back up on Monday.